We are again. My name is Pritscher, and this is the series Meditation and Sacred Place. And in this video, we're in this section, we're learning the eye movements and breath meditation and the bubble diagram, which we refer to. And the bubble diagram is a metaphor for how things arise in the mind and what the workings of the Somatic Meditation Therapy is. And the eye movements and the breath, the instructions are there, but I'll go through it again very quickly. We move the eyes slowly to 8 directions, and those 8 directions are upper left, upper right, lateral left, lateral right, lower left, lower right, straight down, and then straight up. Well, I've moved my head to illustrate the directions, but when we do the meditation, the eyes are closed and we keep our head straight, and we move the eyes with the breath, with the inhalation. So we access an area of the brain, and we bring the breath energy there. So we're accessing, we're energizing, and then when that breath gets to the point of comfortable fullness, we release the eyes and the breath, and the eyes center and the breath centers, and we push the breath out a little bit, and the breath comes back in, and then we go to the next direction, which is upper right. So it's eye movement, breath, slow, and the most important thing is to totally be there in the moment with what you're doing. As a matter of fact, this trains you how to be in the moment also. And so when you move the eyes with the breath, slowly, eyes closed, the eyes get to a point, and that's a good stretch, but it's not a strain. So you hold the stretch. It's not a tight lock hold, but it's holding a stretch, a comfortable hold. And then the breath goes on to its fullness, and you, when it gets to its full point, you release the eyes and the breath. The eyes center, the breath centers, then you push the breath out a little bit, and then the breath, then you move the eyes with the breath to the next direction, which is upper right. So slow is important. The most important thing is to really be there in the moment with what you're doing. And if thoughts come, sensations arise, you just let them be there. You don't feed them. You just allow the thoughts or sensations, emotions to be there, and you are totally there in the moment with moving the eyes and the breath, and then we access the whole brain. And what happens when there's something in the environment, remember when we have those tears in the fabric of our being, in other words, there's some stress or some trauma there, the amygdala in the brain, now this is a complex process that has to do with the vagus nerve, but now I'm just talking about the amygdala, turns on and sends the message. Now we're just talking about trauma. The amygdala has many functions, and now we're talking about the function of the amygdala to send messages out to the other parts of the brain to put us into the stress response to the whole body. And what happens when we don't recover from stress and trauma is that the amygdala doesn't shut down all the way, it stays primed, so it continuously puts us into that stress response. Now, you know how you feel tight and tense, or the slightest thing sets you off, well, that's because the amygdala is primed, and we have to learn how to shut down the amygdala. And we'll be talking a lot about the amygdala because it's a very important, it has a very important switching function. It's a key factor. And for right now, we're just learning how to access the whole brain. And when we do that, we're totally in the moment. We're deepening our level of consciousness where the bubble is smaller. And we experience the old trauma, whereas up in the big bubble, it's experiencing us. It's got us. It's like being in jail. And that getting out of jail and experiencing it feels really good. And when you're at the deeper level of consciousness, that alone feels good because you're closer to your real power. You have more access to the power. You know, the closer you are to the source, the more you experience that power, and the more you can use it in your life. So we continually, spiritual practice basically is deepening your level of consciousness. And now we're learning how to not only deepen our level of consciousness, but recover from old stress and trauma, to remove the old blockages, the obscurations, that the things that hold us back. And that amygdala being on is a big factor. So the eye movements and the breath, we access the whole brain. And that's just the first part. There's a lot of other things that are going on besides the just accessing the whole brain. We're opening up energy centers and receptor sites, and that'll then there's two other eye movement and breath meditations, different directions. So in this part, we're basically accessing our whole central nervous system and letting it calm down. And we're learning with that how to deepen our level of consciousness so we're stronger, and we experience these old trauma and these illusions, what the mind has made up. We experience them, and we begin then to see through the appearance to the presence that's there. And that's a very good beginning. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, email me, and I'll either answer them on the video or by email. So practice this ideally twice a day. For just this first part, you don't need to do very long, but we're going to be learning more parts of the meditation, but you don't need to do this more than 10 minutes, and then later 5 minutes is fine. And if you're in a critical stage of being traumatized, you know, really in a bad place and all stressed out, and you really need help, you can use this eye movement and breath meditation as a first aid. So then I recommend that you take the first 5 minutes of every hour and do the eye movements and breath meditation, and that gets you in the moment. It deepens your level of consciousness, it allows the amygdala to shut down, and you begin the recovery of the stress and trauma. And again, like I've said before, when you recover, it makes you strong. So the deepening your level of consciousness makes you strong. The recovering from stress and trauma makes you strong. And that deep sense of joy begins to happen because you're out of jail. You're no longer in the big bubble where it's got you. It's experiencing you. Now you experience it. And that's the real you beginning to emerge, your true self. So sometimes I talk fast, but thank you very much. And we'll continue.